You think Wild West saloons just served whiskey straight from the bottle? Think again, partner. Those frontier watering holes mixed up some of the strangest, most dangerous, and downright legendary cocktails this side of the Pecos. We're talking drinks that could strip paint, cure snakebite, or knock you flat before you finished your poker hand. From Coffin Varnish that lived up to its name, to forgotten concoctions that would make a modern bartender hang up their jigger, these weren't just drinks, they were liquid history served in dirty shot glasses across the American frontier. So, belly up to the bar and steal your liver, because we're about to pour out 25 authentic Wild West libations you never knew cowboys were actually drinking. Number 1. Tarantula Juice Whiskey Cocktail. Let's start with the drink that gave the Wild West its reputation for rot-gut liquor, tarantula juice. This wasn't a single recipe, but rather a category of cheap frontier whiskey cut with questionable ingredients. Bartenders would take raw alcohol and enhance it with burnt sugar for color, tobacco juice for bite, turpentine for kick, and sometimes gunpowder to give it extra punch. Yes, actual gunpowder. The result was an amber-brown liquid that burned going down and kept burning long after. One shot could make your eyes water and your voice go hoarse. The name came from the effect it had on drinkers. After a few glasses, men claimed they could feel spiders crawling under their skin. That wasn't poetic license. It was likely alcohol poisoning combined with the toxic additives. Served in a thick shot glass at room temperature, knocked back fast before you could think twice about it. Number 2. Stone Fence. One of the oldest American cocktails, the Stone Fence rode west with settlers and became a saloon staple that actually tasted good. Hard apple cider mixed with rye whiskey in equal parts, sometimes with a splash of bitters. That's it. The combination was stronger than you'd expect. The sweetness of the cider masked the whiskey's burn until it was too late. Cowboys called it liquid courage before gunfights. The name supposedly came from the way it made you feel. Solid and unmovable as a stone fence right up until you tried to stand. This drink dates back to the Revolutionary War. Ethan Allen and the Green Mountain Boys allegedly drank stone fences before their raids. By the 1870s, every frontier saloon from Dodge City to Deadwood had hard cider and whiskey behind the bar. Some bartenders added a cinnamon stick for sophistication, making it one of the few fancy drinks available on the frontier. Number 3. Coffin Varnish. The name tells you everything you need to know about this frontier favorite, and yes, it was actually called this in real saloons. Raw grain alcohol diluted with water, burnt molasses, chewing tobacco juice for flavor and color, and a touch of strychnine. That's not a typo. Strychnine, the rat poison. In tiny amounts, it created a tingling sensation that drinkers mistook for quality. The color was dark brown, almost black. The taste was indescribably harsh. Cowboys claimed it could dissolve a horseshoe, or strip the varnish off a coffin. The strychnine addition wasn't just folklore. Saloon keepers used it because in small doses it produced a stimulating effect. In larger doses, it caused convulsions and death. Frontier newspapers regularly reported deaths from adulterated liquor. This swill sold for 10 to 25 cents a shot, making it the drink of choice for broke cowboys and desperate prospectors. Number 4. Cactus Wine. When grapes were impossible to get in the Southwest, enterprising saloon keepers turned to the desert's most abundant resource. Made from fermented prickly pear cactus fruit, this wine was sweet, slightly viscous, and had a deep magenta color. The fruit was crushed, fermented for several weeks with wild yeast, then strained and aged in whatever barrels were available. The flavor was fruity, but with an earthy, vegetal undertone. The alcohol content varied wildly depending on fermentation, anywhere from wine strength to near moonshine levels. Mexican and Native American communities had been making prickly pear wine for centuries before American saloons caught on. Texas and Arizona saloons near the border served it regularly, often mixed with mezcal for extra kick. Some bartenders served it warm in winter, creating a hot cactus wine toddy that was surprisingly comforting after a cold day on the range. Number 5. Mule Skinner. Named for the toughest, most hard-bitten workers on the frontier, this drink had to match their reputation. Blackstrap rum, the cheapest, darkest, most molasses-heavy rum available, mixed with hard cider and a splash of vinegar. The vinegar seems crazy, but it cut the sweetness and gave the drink a sharp, puckering bite. Mule Skinners, the men who drove mule teams hauling freight across the West, supposedly invented this drink because it was cheap, hit hard, and used ingredients that wouldn't spoil in the desert heat. Blackstrap rum was a byproduct of sugar refining, so cheap that even broke cowboys could afford it. It tasted like liquid molasses mixed with regret, but it did the job. Serving tradition. Served at room temperature in whatever container was handy. Mule Skinners weren't particular about glassware. Number 6. Prairie Dew. When commercial whiskey was too expensive or too far away, frontier folk made their own, and Prairie Dew was the polite name for frontier moonshine. Corn-based moonshine, usually made in hidden stills in remote canyons or caves. The mash was fermented corn, sugar, and water, then distilled in copper stills. The first run, called singlings, was redistilled to produce doubling, high-proof, clear alcohol. The quality ranged from surprisingly smooth to instant blindness. There was no quality control, no aging, and definitely no taxes paid. Bad moonshine could contain dangerous levels of methanol, lead from poorly made stills, or other toxins. Cowboys called bad moonshine popskull because of the headaches it caused. During the 1860s to 1880s, legal whiskey was heavily taxed. Moonshiners could produce Prairie Dew for a fraction of the cost and sell it to saloons under the table. Number 7. John Barleycorn. This poetic name referred to personified alcohol itself, but in saloons it meant a specific drink. Straight whiskey with a beer chaser. A shot of rye or bourbon whiskey followed immediately by a mug of lukewarm beer. The whiskey provided the punch, the beer cooled your throat and extended the drinking session. The name John Barleycorn came from British folk songs about the grain used to make alcohol. American cowboys adopted it as slang for their go-to drink combination. The bartender would line up the shot and the beer side by side. You'd knock back the whiskey, then immediately grab the beer. The beer was served to warm or room temperature. Refrigeration didn't exist in most frontier saloons. The whiskey and a beer combination remains a bar standard today, but cowboys drank it out of necessity, not preference. The beer was often flat and sour by the time it was served. Number 8. Rattlesnake Cocktail. Despite the terrifying name, no actual snakes were harmed in the making of this drink, though it could certainly bite back. Rye whiskey, absinthe, or a crude absinthe substitute, lemon juice if available, otherwise vinegar, sugar syrup, and a raw egg white. Everything was shaken hard with ice if you were in a fancy establishment, or just stirred vigorously if you weren't. The egg white created a frothy top, and the absinthe added a licorice-like complexity and a serious alcohol boost. The drink was pale yellow-green, supposedly resembling a snake's underbelly. Absinthe was legal in America until 1912. Frontier saloons served crude versions made with wormwood, anise, and high-proof alcohol. Real European absinthe was rare and expensive. According to frontier lore, a bartender in Deadwood, South Dakota, invented this drink after finding a rattlesnake in his whiskey barrel. He killed the snake, figured the whiskey was already snake-flavored, and created this cocktail to use it up. Number 9. Red Cloud. Named for the famous Lakota war leader, This drink became popular in Wyoming and Dakota Territory saloons during the 1870s. Cherry Bounce, cherry-infused whiskey or brandy, mixed with grenadine or pomegranate syrup, topped with soda water if available. The result was a bright red drink with a sweet tart flavor that was surprisingly refreshing. Cherry Bounce was made by soaking wild cherries in whiskey for months until the fruit broke down and infused the alcohol. The pits gave it a slightly almond-like flavor. Red Cloud was a respected Oglala Lakota leader who fought against U.S. expansion into tribal lands. Naming a drink after him was both tribute and appropriation, typical of frontier culture's complicated relationship with Native Americans. Serving style. Served in a tall glass with whatever ice was available. In winter, saloons had ice cut from frozen rivers. In summer, you drank it warm and pretended it was refreshing. Number 10. Tanglefoot. The name perfectly described what happened after you drank it. Your feet got tangled and you hit the floor. Raw whiskey mixed with tobacco juice, pepper juice from pickled peppers, and sometimes a splash of kerosene. Yes, kerosene, the lamp oil. A tiny amount wouldn't kill you, but it added a distinctive kick that drinkers craved. This was bottom-shelf liquor for bottom-dollar drinkers. It was served in the smallest possible pour because more than one shot could be genuinely dangerous. The tobacco juice wasn't added for flavor. It was a preservative and supposedly gave the drink body. The result was a brownish liquid with an oily sheen on top. Saloon keepers in mining camps served Tanglefoot to miners who'd spent months in the hills and would drink anything alcoholic. These men weren't tasting it. They were just chasing oblivion. Number 11. Socorro Shiner. Named after Socorro, New Mexico, a major mining town during the silver boom, this drink celebrated striking it rich, or drinking away your luck. Mescal, the predecessor to tequila made from agave, mixed with piloncillo syrup, unrefined cane sugar, lime juice, and a pinch of salt on the rim. This was essentially a proto-margarita, created decades before that drink was invented. The mezcal was harsh and smoky, the piloncillo added deep molasses notes, and the lime cut through the sweetness. The salt enhanced everything. This drink shows the Mexican influence on southwestern saloons. Anglo cowboys learned to appreciate mezcal and tequila, though they often insisted on Americanizing the recipes with extra sugar. The Socorro Shiner predates the documented margarita by at least 50 years, but because it was a regional drink in a mining town, it never gained national recognition. Number 12. Gin Rickey, Frontier Style. The gin Rickey was invented in Washington, D.C. in the 1880s, but frontier saloons put their own spin on it. Gin, usually low-quality bathtub gin, lime juice or lemon juice, soda water if available, otherwise plain water, served over ice if you were lucky. The key was the lime. It cut the harsh gin taste and made it almost palatable. Frontier bartenders often substituted vinegar for lime juice when citrus wasn't available. It wasn't the same, but the acidity still worked. The original Gin Rickey was created at Shoemaker's Bar in D.C. and named after a Democratic lobbyist named Colonel Joe Rickey. By the 1890s, it had spread to Western saloons where it became a summer favorite. Some Texas bartenders added a splash of honey mesquite syrup, creating a regional variation that was sweeter and more complex than the original. Number 13. Coffin Reviver. Don't let the name fool you. This wasn't drunk at funerals. It was the ultimate hangover cure, served at dawn to cowboys who'd overindulged the night before. Brandy, or whatever aged spirit was available, Fernet or stomach bitters, a raw egg, and a dash of cayenne pepper. The whole mess was stirred together and consumed in one go. The theory was that the alcohol steadied your nerves, the bitters settled your stomach, the egg provided protein, and the cayenne shocked your system awake. The texture was slimy from the raw egg, and the cayenne burned. You didn't sip this, you chugged it and hoped it stayed down. Reviver cocktails were popular in the 1800s as morning-after remedies. The Coffin Reviver name suggested it could bring you back from death itself, or at least from feeling like death. Number 14. 40 Rod Whiskey. The most infamous name in frontier drinking, 40 Rod wasn't a recipe, it was a warning. This was the absolute bottom-tier whiskey, so named because it supposedly could kill a man at 40 rods, 220 yards. It was grain alcohol diluted with water, then flavored with burnt sugar, prune juice for color, sulfuric acid for bite, and whatever else the saloon keeper had on hand. Some versions contained strychnine, arsenic, or turpentine. Others used rattlesnake heads for flavor. None of it was FDA approved because the FDA didn't exist yet. In Tombstone, Arizona, a bartender named Bucket of Blood, Charlie, allegedly sold 40 Rod that was so strong he kept a doctor on retainer just for his customers. 10 cents a shot, the cheapest drunk you could buy. Cowboys called it Liquid Lightning and Tarantula Juice. No one called it good. Number 15. Blackstrap and Molasses. When you couldn't afford regular rum, you drank Blackstrap, and you made it go further with even more molasses. Blackstrap rum, the final, darkest, most bitter runoff from sugar refining, mixed with blackstrap molasses and hot water. The result was intensely sweet, almost black, and thick enough to coat your teeth. This was a winter drink, served hot to warm up cowboys after cattle drives through snow. The high sugar content provided quick calories, and the alcohol provided warmth, or at least the illusion of it. Blackstrap rum was so cheap that even during economic depression, saloons could afford to serve it. A single barrel could be stretched for months by diluting it with molasses and water. Some cowboys added butter to their blackstrap and molasses, creating a hot buttered rum variation that was even more caloric. When you couldn't afford regular rum, you drank blackstrap, and you made it go further with even more molasses. Blackstrap rum, the final, darkest, most bitter runoff from sugar refining, mixed with blackstrap molasses and hot water. The result was intensely sweet, almost black, and thick enough to coat your teeth. This was a winter drink, served hot to warm up cowboys after cattle drives through snow. The high sugar content provided quick calories, and the alcohol provided warmth, or at least the illusion of it. Blackstrap rum was so cheap that even during economic depression, saloons could afford to serve it. A single barrel could be stretched for months by diluting it with molasses and water. Some cowboys added butter to their blackstrap and molasses, creating a hot buttered rum variation that was even more caloric. Number 16. Taos Lightning. Named after Taos, New Mexico, this drink had a reputation that spread across the Southwest like wildfire. Aguardiente, a crude grape brandy, mixed with wild honey, crushed red chili peppers, and sometimes a splash of mescal. The combination was sweet, burning, and thoroughly disorienting. The chili peppers created a delayed burn. You'd swallow it thinking it wasn't so bad. Then, 5 seconds later, your mouth would catch fire. This drink perfectly represented the mixing of Spanish, Mexican, and American cultures in the Southwest. The aguardiente was Spanish, the honey was traded from local tribes, and the presentation was pure American saloon. Kit Carson allegedly drank Taos Lightning before his expeditions. Whether that's true or just frontier marketing is lost to history, but saloons in Taos used his name to sell it anyway. Number 17. Beer and tomato juice. Before the Michelada and the red beer became bar staples, cowboys were mixing beer with tomato juice for practical reasons. Flat, warm beer mixed with tomato juice, salt, and sometimes a splash of hot sauce if available. The tomato juice masked the taste of beer that had gone slightly sour, and the salt helped replace electrolytes lost to heat and hard work. This wasn't a cocktail. It was a recovery drink consumed after long days of cattle driving or mining. Tomatoes were grown widely in the Southwest and could be juiced and preserved. When beer barrels sat too long and the beer went flat or skunky, mixing it with tomato juice salvaged it. In Texas, they called it red eye. In New Mexico, it was sangre de toro, bull's blood, and in California saloons, it was simply the cowboy cure. Number 18. Whiskey Sour, Frontier Variation. The Whiskey Sour has fancy origins, but frontier saloons stripped it down to bare essentials: whiskey, lemon juice, or vinegar as a substitute, and sugar or honey. That's it. No egg white, no bitters, no garnish. Just 3 ingredients shaken together or stirred vigorously. When lemons weren't available, bartenders used wild plum juice, choke cherry juice, or straight white vinegar. The acidity was the key element. It cut the harsh whiskey and made it almost refreshing. Citrus fruits were rare and expensive on the frontier. A single lemon could cost 25 cents, the same price as 2 shots of whiskey. So most cowboys never tasted the real version. The Long Branch Saloon in Dodge City allegedly kept lemons on hand specifically for their whiskey sours, making it one of the most upscale drinks you could order in Kansas. Number 19. Phosphate and Whiskey. When pharmacies and saloons were often the same establishment, drinks like this blurred the line between medicine and recreation. Acid phosphate, a souring agent sold in pharmacies, sugar, water, and whiskey. The phosphate gave it a tart, almost citrus-like flavor without needing actual citrus. Add carbonated water if available, and you had a frontier version of a whiskey highball. The acid phosphate was originally marketed as a health tonic for digestion. Cowboys didn't care about the health benefits, they just liked the way it made cheap whiskey taste better. Acid phosphate disappeared from American bars after Prohibition and has only recently been revived by craft cocktail enthusiasts. Old-timers would find it hilarious that something they considered a cheap mixer is now artisanal. This was considered a refined drink in frontier saloons, something you'd order if you wanted to seem sophisticated. Number 20. Mescal Sour. Before tequila dominated, mezcal was the spirit of choice in southwestern saloons. Mezcal, lime or lemon juice, agave nectar or piloncillo syrup, and egg white if the saloon was fancy enough. Shaken hard to create a frothy top, served in a small glass. The mezcal was smokier and more intense than modern tequila, made in small batches in rural distilleries. The smoke flavor came from roasting the agave hearts in underground pits before fermentation. This drink was served in saloons along the Mexican border and in New Mexico territory long before margaritas existed. It represents the authentic drinking culture of the Southwest. Some bartenders added a crushed chile piquin pepper to the shaker, creating a drink that was simultaneously sweet, sour, smoky, and spicy. Number 21. Strychnine Cocktail. Yes, they actually called it this. And yes, it actually contained strychnine. Whiskey or brandy, orange bitters, which often contained strychnine as a flavoring agent, sugar, and lemon peel. The strychnine content was supposedly low enough to be safe. It produced a tingling sensation and mild stimulation. Strychnine wasn't just in cocktails, it was in patent medicines, tonics, and even some commercial bitters until the Pure Food and Drug Act of 1906 started regulating such things. The line between stimulating and poisonous was thin. Frontier newspapers documented numerous deaths from strychnine-laced drinks when bartenders got the ratios wrong. Cowboys worried about gunfights and Indian raids, but statistically, you were more likely to be poisoned by your drink than killed in a shootout. Number 22. Episcopal Punch. The name suggests this was a respectable church social drink, but saloon versions were anything but. Black tea, cold, bourbon, rum, brandy, sugar, lemon juice, and whatever fruit was available. Everything went into a communal bowl and was ladled into tin cups. The tea gave it tannins and caffeine. The multiple spirits provided serious alcohol content, and the fruit masked how strong it really was. 1 cup was pleasant. 3 cups had you seeing double. This was served at respectable social gatherings in frontier towns, dances, fundraisers, town meetings. The fancy name made it seem civilized, but it was still designed to get folks drunk. The Episcopal name came from the Episcopal Church's more relaxed view on alcohol compared to Methodist and Baptist congregations. It was a frontier joke about drinking under the guise of respectability. Number 23. Wild Mare's Milk. Despite the disturbing name, this didn't contain actual mare's milk. Thank goodness. Gin or whiskey, milk, cow's milk, sometimes canned, sugar, and nutmeg. Everything was shaken together until frothy, creating a proto-eggnog without the eggs. The milk curdled slightly when mixed with alcohol, creating an unappetizing appearance but a surprisingly smooth, creamy texture. Cowboys drank it cold in summer or heated in winter. The name supposedly came from the drink's pale color and the way it foamed when shaken, resembling mare's milk. Others claim it referred to the drink's unpredictable nature. Sometimes smooth, sometimes curdled, always wild. Montana saloons added a shot of coffee to it, creating a caffeinated, alcoholic milk drink that confused taste buds and kept cowboys awake during long poker games. Number 24. Corpse Reviver, Frontier Version. The Corpse Reviver family of cocktails were all designed to cure hangovers, but the Frontier version was particularly aggressive. Brandy, Fernet Branca or homemade bitters, peppermint schnapps or peppermint extract, and absinthe. This combination attacked hangovers from every angle: alcohol to steady the nerves, bitters to settle the stomach, peppermint to cool nausea, and absinthe to make you forget you felt terrible. The taste was medicinal, minty, and strongly alcoholic. You didn't enjoy it, you endured it. The original Corpse Reviver cocktails were created in London, but they traveled to America and were adapted with whatever ingredients frontier saloons had available. This was consumed quickly at sunrise, often standing at the bar with one foot on the brass rail, swearing you'd never drink again. Until tomorrow. Number 25. Busthead. We'll close with the drink that epitomized frontier excess. Busthead, the moonshine that could split your skull. High-proof corn whiskey, moonshine, usually 120 to 150 proof, sometimes mixed with a tiny bit of water to make it sippable. But let's be honest, nobody sipped Busthead. You shot it and hoped for the best. This was homemade White Lightning, unaged and unfiltered. It tasted like pure alcohol with notes of corn and regret. The burn started in your mouth and didn't stop until it hit your stomach. Busthead referred to the splitting headache that inevitably followed consumption. Some claimed the name meant it could literally bust your head open with its strength. In Appalachia and the Ozarks, Busthead was the currency of trade. A jug of good Busthead could buy you supplies, information, or safe passage through dangerous territory. Bad Busthead could contain lead from the still, methanol from improper distillation, or other toxins. Frontier wisdom said if it made you go blind temporarily, it was probably bad Busthead. Permanently meant you should have stopped drinking several shots ago. So, there you have it, partner. 25 authentic Wild West libations that cowboys, miners, gamblers, and gunslingers actually drank. From Tarantula Juice to Busthead, from stone fences to Strychnine Cocktails, these weren't craft cocktails made by mixologists in bow ties. These were survival drinks mixed by frontier bartenders who measured with their eyes and flavored with whatever wouldn't kill you immediately. Were they sophisticated? Rarely. Were they safe? Questionable at best. Were they authentic representations of drinking culture on the American frontier? Absolutely. Cowboys and frontier folk didn't have the luxury of aged spirits, fresh citrus, or ice on demand. They drank what was available, what was cheap, and what provided enough alcohol to take the edge off another brutal day on the plains. Saloon bartenders worked with questionable spirits, creative substitutions, and customers who wanted strong drinks that hit fast. The next time you order a carefully crafted cocktail with hand-chipped ice and artisanal bitters, remember, your great-great-grandfather might have been downing 40-rod whiskey in a dusty saloon, chasing it with Coffin Varnish, and somehow living to ride another day. The Old West wasn't just wild, friend. It was liquid courage in a dirty glass, served by a bartender who might shoot you if you complained about the taste. If you love these dark, forgotten stories of how people really lived back then, hit subscribe and ride with us into the past.